Good evening, Tokyo, and good morning, Brazil. This is Renato Brandão live. Our live streaming goes every week at 7 p.m. Tokyo time, 7 a.m. in Brazil. So, good morning to you. And 10 a.m. in London and in Lisbon, 11 o'clock other parts of Europe, and 9 o'clock in Melbourne and Sydney in Australia. So, welcome for you who's tuning in now. Send us a message, tell us where you're from, and if you're listening to us well, if the sound is good, if the image is okay. And I'm very happy to announce that today we have a lovely guest from South Africa, but he lives in Brazil, Jacques Theron, who is a breathing facilitator, breathwork facilitator, and he will be talking to us about how we should breathe, but also about lots of interesting things that he does. For example, take groups of tourists to the Camino de Santiago in Spain. Also, he facilitates groups to visit places in Europe. He takes people from Brazil, from South Africa. He's a polyglot. He speaks lots of languages, and he'll be talking to you in English tonight, but also in Portuguese. Para os brasileiros que estão assistindo, esta é a live do Renato Brandão, hoje em inglês, mas fiquem por aí porque o nosso convidado de hoje é um estrangeiro que mora no Brasil e fala português também. Well, if you don't know, our live streamings, they started earlier this year because of the pandemic. We felt that a lot of people, especially here in the Brazilian community in Tokyo, were feeling quite isolated and also a little bit worried. Some people lost their work. As you know, it was a global problem. But we felt it would be nice to do, something to cheer them up. So we started having guests. Hello, Sonia, welcome. We start having guests from all over the world, people who are interested to talk to us. In the beginning, people from Japan, from our community here. We have, as many of you know, we have a large number of Brazilians who are permanent residents in Tokyo. And they were quite happy to come and talk to us and share their thoughts and talents, musical live streamings. We had a doctor from São Paulo who came and told us about the situation with COVID-19 in São Paulo. And then it became quite popular. So we were very happy with the results. And a lot of people started asking, why don't you do some in English as well? So a couple of months ago, we started doing at least once a month this live streaming in English. And today is one of them. I'm very happy that a lot of my followers, people who watch our live streaming every week, they watch both. They watch it in English and in Portuguese, which is really great. But also, I have a lot of people who only watch, the live streaming in English, of course, and vice versa. A lot of Brazilians who don't speak English, they only watch the Portuguese ones. If you are able to understand both languages, please watch both because they're quite different in feeling, as you can imagine. I always say that when you speak another language, it's almost like you have another persona, isn't it? Like you develop different parts of your brain, I think, and you have a different perspective on things and so on. So I do feel I need both of them. I need my Portuguese live streamings and my English live streamings because I need to access, those different parts of my personality and also talk to people in different ways. There's such an incredible cultural difference. Yeah. And I'm thinking about doing one in Japanese in the future as well. Let's see if I sum up my confidence. In fact, we have one of our guests who was in the Portuguese live, Yuka Almeida Prado, who is a soprano, an opera singer, and she lived here in Japan. She speaks Japanese fluently. So we're thinking of doing one of her musical lives in Japanese, which would be lovely because she could explain, some of the Brazilian songs and read out the translations that she makes herself, and then put those translations available to the Japanese public so they could learn a little bit about our Brazilian beautiful songs from Villa Lobos and other composers and so on. So yes, next year we have great plans, lots of different. I'm going to widen up a little bit our spectrum and include people from different walks of life and professions, and I want to keep the format of Portuguese and English. Um, but it should be more challenging for me and hopefully more interesting for you guys. So thank you so much for those of you who come every week and watch and support my work. This is really for you. So the more you participate, the more interesting the live streamings become. Make sure you send your questions, to our guests, participate, comment, so that we feel this is alive. Of course, you can watch it later, especially for those of you in Brazil, because I do understand it's very, very early to get up at 7 a.m. to watch Renato Brandão, but you can watch it later. So all of these live streamings are recorded, and they become available later here at the Japão Aqui page. So this is our logo. So Japão Aqui page on Facebook. But we are also live right now on YouTube, and of course it stays there as well. And we have a lovely site in Belém do Pará, in Brazil, northern city, where Lincoln Saito, our technical helper, is at the moment. And he has a really interesting site called Pai d'Égua Online. This is an expression from Belém do Pará in the north of Brazil. And on that site, you will find Renato Brandão page with all our lives. They stay there. And we also can listen to them as a podcast on Spotify, which is really great. So if you like to listen to podcasts while you're driving, or at home where you're doing some other domestic chores, that's a really lovely option to just tune in and listen to that. So let's see who is here with us. Lion Matthew, hello there from Australia. Very nice. I also have an Australian passport, so good day, mate. Nice to see you. And that's something I have in common with our guest tonight. He's also Australian. Sonia Susana from Portugal, where she has just moved to. She was in São Paulo. She has met Jacques in São Paulo, and now she's living in beautiful Vila Nova de Gaia near Porto. Good morning to you, Sonia. And Duílio Aparecido, boa noite, from São Paulo. Duílio, boa oportunidade para você praticar o seu inglês. And Miranda Kenrick here from Tokyo is also watching us already. Gareth Griffiths, a friend of mine from Wales, who lives here in Tokyo as well, and is also a teacher. So I think we have enough people now to say hello to Jacques. Good morning, Jacques. Welcome to Renato Brandão Live. Are you there? Oh, maybe he's not there. Let's see. Liam is my friend from Melbourne, says Sonia. So you have somebody watching us from Melbourne. Is Jacques there? Let's see, Lincoln. There you are. Go. Welcome.
Good morning, Renato. How are you going?
Good morning. I was a bit worried that you hadn't come back, and I thought, oh my God, my guest has disappeared. No, how are you, Jacques?
Not. Good, thanks. Good. Nice to wake up this early in the morning, actually.
Oh, that's good. Well, thank you so much for accepting my invitation, because I know it's a lot to ask of people to be, ready to go on camera. But I know you are an early riser as well, so I thought it would be okay. Yes.
Well, the city is so quiet this early, so it's lovely to, just to see the city, without all the traffic and the noise.
I agree. I do a lot of my work. I'm a translator as well, as you know, so it's the best time for me to work. Like I love to get up at 5, have my coffee and sit in peace and answer my messages and all that. So,
exactly.
So let's start talking about your interesting background. So you are from South Africa originally, from Cape Town, right?
It's complicated. I was born in Australia. My parents moved back to South Africa when I was 3. And then we actually lived in a sort of a small city called Uppington, which is in the Kalahari Desert.
Wow.
And then we went back to Australia when I was about 9. And then I went back to Port Elizabeth to study at university when I was 18.
Wonderful. Well, that's why I detect, lots of lovely Australian sounds in your accent when you speak in English. It's very interesting because, we speak in Portuguese and we speak in English as well. So it's like we have this, 4 people, the 2 Renatos and the 2 Jacques, and
exactly.
It's I love that. I really like that. When you talk to people who speak other languages, to see the other, even the facial expression changes. Have you noticed? That's
exactly.
So interesting that people develop other other parts
it's a
of their
different
personality.
In a way. it's almost like it's a different consciousness when you speak a different language, I think.
That's right. So people who speak a lot of languages like you, so you also speak French, right?
I speak French, yes. Spanish.
And Afrikaans, which is...
Afrikaans,
Yes.
yes.
So how many altogether have you counted?
I mean, I speak a little bit of Italian. I have studied Japanese. I've studied Danish and Swedish. So, and Russian I've studied. So, yeah, I've always just loved languages. As a teenager, I just had this strange, insatiable desire to learn languages.
Same here. I still do, actually. As you know, a couple of years ago, I went to Holland and I did a summer course in Dutch, which was harder than I thought, but really interesting because I speak German as well. So it was not so hard for me. But I wanted to learn so many more languages. I just don't have enough years left on me to do all the ones I want. So Chinese, for example, I had a go, but it was so hard. But I want to go back to that. I want to learn Arabic as well. So yes, let's keep doing. That's something we have in common. So why don't you say hello to the Brazilians? So vamos falar em português pouco com o Jacques, para vocês conhecerem também esse outro lado dele.
Sim,
bom dia.
Bom dia, olá a todos, os brasileiros, os portugueses.
E você faz o seu trabalho também, nós vamos falar sobre o seu trabalho também para os brasileiros, né? Hoje você tem muitos clientes aí no Brasil, né?
Exato, sim. Claro, agora com o Covid é muito mais difícil, mas sim, eu falo português, eu gosto de falar português. Sim.
E seu português é ótimo, você aprendeu muito rapidamente, eu fiquei bem impressionado e fala fluentemente, né? Claro que às vezes tem uma outra palavra que você não sabe, como a gente em qualquer língua, na verdade, mas é perfeito para o seu trabalho e tudo. Bom, então vamos passar para o seu trabalho, né? Você... a primeira coisa que eu ouvi do seu trabalho era que você levava grupos de turistas da África do Sul, né, para a Europa, para fazer passeios históricos e passeios espirituais também, né? Então, como é que começou isso? Como que você começou a fazer esse trabalho? Let's go back to English. Sorry, let's go back to English. Yes. So, just repeating my question. Sorry, I got carried away in Portuguese. But I want to talk about Jacques' work, which is very interesting. And the first thing that I heard about his work was that he took groups as a facilitator to tours of Rome, historical tours, but also, more importantly, spiritual tours to, for example, for the Camino de Santiago. So how did you start doing that work?
Well, I was living in France at the time and I did the Camino myself. I just kind of felt I had to do that pilgrimage. And I just loved it so much. It was one of the most profound experiences of my life that I thought I'd, like to offer a process and to do something like, 20 days of walking the Camino is a perfect opportunity to really spend time with yourself, with your own personal growth. And, in this magnificent place in Spain, it's historical, it's beautiful nature, it's incredible human experience, sharing with other pilgrims. There's this spiritual aspect, so why not go back?
And as you know, for most of us Brazilians, the first information we got about that's you in the Camino there on the right. The first time we heard about this incredible pilgrimage was in the book by Paulo Coelho. So, when you did the walk the first time, had you read the book already, or did you hear about that later?
That was the first book that I read, and that kind of got me thinking about it. But it was interesting. A lot of different people kind of mentioned it. And the first time someone mentioned it, I'd never heard of it before. I said, when they mentioned it, I said, yes, I've got to do that. That just was like a strong feeling. And then I read the Paulo Coelho book and so forth. So it's one of the better ones. There's lots of books on the Camino. But
yes, I know. Well, the book was very impressive because, it has lots of exercises that I actually did when I read the book the first time. And I found the exercises were really good. One that stuck to my mind was like to slow the pace when you walk. And that is such an incredible thing. I even do that now. Like when I go to the park, sometimes I do this slow walk. There you go with the group. Let me just interrupt here to tell you that we're getting a lot of really interesting feedback about the Camino. So Gareth Griffiths has said that he really wants to do it. So Gareth, I will put you in touch with Jacques, because I think I can't recommend a better guide for you to do that. And Sonia Susana, whom you met, Sonia Del Campo, she says, I went to university in Santiago. So very personal connections here. And Sonia is saying, by the way, that Jacques speaks very good Spanish too, and it's true. I have heard you speak Spanish.
Thank you.
My university city. So, so then, how did you go about it? Like, you were still in France. So, did you organize a group from France, or did you go back to South
No,
Africa?
no, I just went. I just went from France. I literally got on the train. I had the wrong shoes. I had the wrong backpack, but I just knew I had to do it. And yeah, again, absolutely loved it. And then a few years later, I moved back to South Africa, and I already had a client base there. And I kind of just put it out there, and I had a really amazing response to the people who just wanted to try it out.
And how many times have you done it so far?
I've done it 15 times now. Yeah.
Right.
So,
and this year, of course, you had to cancel it, right? I suppose.
Yes, I had to cancel this year. And
do you think we'll be able to do it next year? I think so, right? With this vaccine coming in England and in America.
Yeah, possibly, hopefully. I mean, gosh, I missed it so much this year. It's just, you know.
Well, I was going to say, if you do it every year, that becomes kind of, it's like when you're doing a fitness exercise and, like you stop it and it's horrible, isn't it? So, I mean, if you do all that walking every year now, I mean, not only that, you do other walks, don't you? I mean, you go to other places as well. How about Rome?
Yes.
Tell me about Rome, because I heard from our friend Marcia that, you're very knowledgeable about, the Roman history and ruins and all that. So how did that start, taking tourists?
And that was also just, absolute love for the city and the richness and the layers of the city. So, yeah, that's also just something that's developed. But, again, it's sort of logistically, doing something like the Camino is amazing because people can just do it in their own way. Even though we go as a group, people can sort of decide where they want to sleep, and you don't need to pre-book hotels. So in terms of a holiday, it's just a very, very easy experience because everything is set up for a totally kind of al fresco experience on the Camino.
Well, I love hiking and I love nature and everything, but I'm going to ask you something, and I hope that other people will have the same kind of question in their minds, because otherwise I feel terribly embarrassed. But is that okay to do the Camino, but stay in nice hotels and have a nice kind of shower at the end of each day, or is it like defeats the purpose?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think I think it's nice to maybe, well, in the beginning, in the process that I run, some of the first nights we stay in the pilgrim refuges, which is, basically dormitories, dirty showers, no sheets, and so forth. And then, after 2 or 3 days, when you go to a hotel that's actually got sheets and that's actually got a fresh towel, it just feels like absolute luxury. So, so you really do appreciate
the final aim, isn't it, of the walk, the Catedral de Santiago de Compostela.
Exactly.
That building itself is incredible, isn't it? I can't wait to see it, because it looks to me like the Baroque churches we saw in Minas Gerais last year. I mean, there's something really special about them, isn't it? Can you tell us about like the sensation of going into? I've seen it on. I watch a lot of programs about Santiago here in Japan. They are obsessed about it here, as they are in the whole world. But I just, the image of that huge incense thing flowing back and forth, and that height, and everything. Tell us about that church.
It's just magnificent. I mean, the scale obviously is one thing, but for me, the most important thing is obviously the spirit. You've got hundreds or thousands of pilgrims a day walking in who have done, 2 weeks or a month of walking. And, to arrive in that cathedral is a very emotional experience. And, even now, as I talk about it, it brings up those emotions. And then when you see that Botafumeiro, which is the big sensor in that space, it's just absolutely awe-inspiring. So, the way I see the Camino, it's almost like this river that's this energy that's just pulling you towards literally this cathedral. So when you get there, it's just an experience. Obviously, the art's magnificent. The architecture is incredible. You've also got this one pillar where for 1,000 years people have touched a particular place in this pillar, and it's made this deep imprint, with literally millions of pilgrims' hands going into this one place. It's
wow.
It's very, very emotional. So
well, you are a very spiritual person, and I have very, very strong memory of us in Ouro Preto. We had the incredible privilege of going to Ouro Preto together last year with our friend
Yes.
Mausir as well, which to me is like one of the best trips I've ever done in my life. It was so special. But I have this very strong memory of you sitting there in the church in silence, and in two churches, in São Francisco Church, which is absolutely gorgeous. Brazilians probably know it, of course. But also that other church that, the first one we went to, which was it Conceição? Maybe, the one with all the gold. And I remember you sitting there in silence, and I was watching you and how you were absorbing that energy, but also feeling it in a way that I don't think I could. I mean, I could see some training there. I could see some initiation that I don't feel that I have. And did you always have that spiritual side with you, like since you started doing the walks and stuff, or is something that you developed later?
Yeah, I mean, I think I developed that in my early 20s, and I think any religious space, be it a church, be it a temple, in whatever religion, it kind of holds an energy, and it's almost like every person who goes there with love and devotion leaves a little bit of that love and devotion behind, and you can really feel it in those places. And I think that's one of the attractions for me of the pilgrimage is of the Camino, is that millions of people have done that pilgrimage over 1,500 years. And it just leaves this incredible energy and experience. It's just so easy to connect on a spiritual level because it's there. It's in the air. It's in the stones. Every stone that's there.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it transcends religions too. That's a wonderful thing about it, because it's not about Christianity. And in speaking of pilgrimages, I have been thinking about you because they're showing here in Japan at the moment in one of the travel channels. One guy that is doing the pilgrimage of the 88 temples of Shikoku, which you probably have heard about. So I'd like to invite you in this moment to come and do it with me. So maybe we can do it, or at least part of it, because it would have needed a lot of time to do the whole 88 temples.
Yes,
but they show him walking, and every time he arrives in a temple, he reads some sutras. It's always the same sutra, and he reads it in. He's not a priest or anything. Oh, Thais is watching us. Hello, Thais. Good morning. So nice to see you watching my live streaming. Welcome. And it was. Like the moment I saw it, of course, the first person I thought about was you, because I thought, oh my God, it'd be so lovely to do it with your insight and your, the experience. And then, of course, that would add to your, spiritual experience to have that Buddhist side of it. And what is really beautiful, and that's something that Thais has done when she was here in Japan, is when you go into a temple, and especially for the 88 temples of the pilgrimage, you probably know this, but you buy a little book, and then they write this beautiful calligraphy in each temple. So there's a special priest who is in a little desk, and you take it to him, and you pay a little money, and then he writes it. He writes the number of the temple, and he puts a stamp, and it's just gorgeous, So, and they show it. So every time, he stops in a temple, you see the beautiful calligraphy. You can't read anything, of course, because it's, it's very ancient kanjis, the name of the temple and so on. But he also puts the number, so like 77, 78, so you do them in order. It's gorgeous. It's something that I hope you can do someday.
I really want to do it. I've always had a great love for Japanese culture, so that is one of those experiences I would really love to have. But actually, interestingly, similarly on the Camino as well, you also get a stamp at the end of each day, and at the different churches, you can also get a stamp, which becomes part of your credencial or your pilgrim's passport. Which also it's a little thing, but it's very satisfying to see those stamps build up in your passport.
I have a little anecdote about Thais actually about this, because I remember that at some point when we were in Kyoto, I told her, oh, you can actually buy a book and get stamps. And she was like, what? And she really wanted it then. So we got a little book. And then I almost regretted it because, you had to kind of line up in some temples and wait for the priest to do that. And I was like, oh, God, here we go again. But of course, it's something you have to do, especially, if you're visiting Japan for the first time and all of that. Exactly. So I'm sure she has that book and treasures that. It's somewhere in her beautiful apartment in São Paulo now. And it's a lovely memento of the trip. But let's talk about your other work. So, you call yourself breathing, what is it?
Breathwork facilitator, yeah.
Breathwork facilitator. So I watched some of your videos and I was very impressed. I mean, breathing is something so simple, but we all neglect it so badly. And, you actually get that from many religions and from many practices. For example, if you do Buddhist meditation, it's all about the breathing. So tell us about it. What is the importance of breathing and how can we improve it?
Well, the breath work, again, as you say, it's so absolutely simple, but breath work, if you do it consciously, it can take you into a trance, ranging from a light trance to an incredibly deep trance. And when we enter a trance, it's almost like the head and the ego gets out of the way and the body's own natural sort of healing instinct takes over. And, it brings about balance, physically. It can also bring about a lot of balance and healing psychologically. You can sort of live or relive aspects of your life, of your past. You can gain new insights into that. You can have like a very powerful healing release. So, and then of course, the breath work can take you into, great altered states. The picture coming up on the screen there is of doing breath work in one of the rivers on the Camino in Villafranca del Bierzo, which is a very beautiful city, but because we've got access to a river there, we also sort of do the breath work in the water. And, there's many different styles. So, breathing in the water has a particular sort of goal or experience. Breathing in warm water is a different experience. Breathing, in a counted manner, which is often used in meditation, especially Buddhist meditation.
That's right.
As one type of experience doing breath work like rebirthing or holotropic breath work, which are more sort of modern therapeutic applications. They can take you into an incredibly deep trance where you see visions and colors. So it's a field that not many people know about, but it's incredibly powerful.
So, just before, we had your information on the screen. So that's your site. So if somebody would like to try, to do your work, that's the Book of Floating Pages, and also www.floating. These are your sites, right?
Exactly. Yes.
So
yes.
If you go into those pages, you can get information about how to get started and all of that, right?
And yeah, we've got online courses, pre-recorded courses, live courses in breath work. It really blows the mind, and it really it's therapeutic. It's spiritual. It's kind of practical for day-to-day stress relief, and it's free. It's just very simple. You just change the way you breathe, and you change the way you think as a result.
Well, I wanted to bring you in, right now in December. We have one more live in Portuguese next week, but this is the last live in English. And the reason I wanted you here is because, this year I've experienced a lot of myself. I wasn't too bad, but so many of my close friends have become quite upset about, the whole isolation. Number one, I think a lot of people felt quite isolated. Second, the fear that we have of catching this, this virus. And third, the way we are insecure and worried about work and what will happen to us, with this pandemic. So, what can you tell us, in very simple kind of terms, what can we do that is related to breathing and related to this experience of, the spiritual search that can help us get through this moment? Because I'm sure that a lot of people watching us now are still quite anxious, about what's going on and what's happening next year. Is much longer do we have until this is over, and how can we avoid this anxiety?
I think for me, what I've realized, obviously, this is a completely unnatural time and experience. Being forced to be isolated from other people. It goes against our grain as human beings.
Yes.
Because we're social animals. But, then when you look at some of the spiritual traditions, I'd say actually all spiritual traditions also have a tradition of sort of a monastic life, a life of kind of isolation. So, one of the ways that I try and look at this and try and use this as an opportunity is to see this as a retreat. This is a retreat away from your normal life. You can try and see yourself in a different way. You can try and experience yourself in a different way. So I think having some sort of practice daily to take yourself out of kind of what your ego is doing, what your emotions are doing, and to see this as an opportunity. And how I sort of experience this whole time is it's a stripping away. It's a stripping away of some of our old habits. It's a stripping away of our habits as a collective, as a society as well. It really allows us to rethink who we are as individuals and where we're going. So, tying some sort of contemplative practice to this is incredibly powerful, So, take it as a time to sort of go into your own inner monastery and sort of experience what that is like for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean,
That's
obviously,
great.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
And obviously there are sort of very simple breathwork techniques which I could, teach. I mean, we could even do a very quick one now if there's time. But
yes, let's do it now. We have time. So what can we do now?
Okay, so this technique is called 44 breaths. It's a technique that I developed. Again, just to give you some context, some breathwork techniques will take 45 minutes to do a session. For example, rebirthing. Generally, breath work's about 45 minutes. Holotropic breath work developed by Stan Grof, that's a 3-hour experience with very intense music. This breath work will be, something that you can do in, ranging from 2 to 5 minutes. And this is something that I always suggest people do that, when they want to break out of a particular state of mind. So if you're feeling very depressed or upset, do this to break your mindset. Or, if it's at the end of the day, if you're working from home and you want to get out of your work mode and enter your sort of evening relaxation mode, again, it's a nice way to sort of break out. Also, if you already have a meditation practice, it's a nice way just to really quickly get you into a relaxed state of mind. So anyway, it's 44 breaths. And this is a counted technique as opposed to an intuitive breathing technique, which the other techniques are. And how this works is we take 7 deep breaths. I will guide you through this.
Okay.
And the deeper breaths, when you breathe deeply, you kind of take your brain frequency and sort of really just bring it down. So you really relax. It just really takes you into a deeper space within yourself. Then we do 14 medium length breaths, which is 2 times 7. That's based on the number 7, this technique. So the medium breaths get you into an alpha state of consciousness. So that's kind of alert, but very relaxed. And then we do 21, 3 times 7, very fast breaths. And that kind of takes us from that deep state into the next level of consciousness. So it's a constant it's almost like a cycle, taking you very deep, then taking you to the next one. And then at the end of that, we do 1 very deep breath, holding in for about 30 seconds. And then we do another breath, the 44th breath, which is a holding out. And I call the breath, the holding in breath is sort of the breath of life. It's kind of life affirming. It's affirming who you are, affirming your body. And then the breath of death, or the breathing out breath, is where you can kind of die to your past, die to the things you want to die to, like stress, releasing those things so that you can kind of, when you breathe in again, you're kind of reborn in a sense. So
I think we need that. We need to be reborn from 2020.
I think so. Yeah, we've made it though. We've made it through the year.
Yeah.
So
let's
yeah.
do it. So if you are tuning in now, this is Renato Brandão live streaming, and our guest tonight is Jacques Theron. And in the morning in Brazil and evening here in Tokyo. And we're about to do a lovely breathing exercise, which is a great way to, let's say, put some closure in this year, but also get ready for next year, which according to Sonia, 2021 will be Año Santo, Jacobean year in Santiago.
Oh, amazing.
Yes, it's supposed to be very special. So why don't we get ready for that, doing this lovely breathing exercise now?
Good. And just to let you know as well that this breathwork technique I do make available free of charge. I've got an audio that's pre-recorded that if you want to get it, you can download it free of charge. It's a lovely thing to do daily or several times a day. Good.
Thank you.
So just everyone sit up straight, close your eyes, and you can just follow my breathing. I'll do the counting. You don't need to think about anything, just breathe. So close your eyes. We'll start with the 7 deep breaths. Through the nose or the mouth, it doesn't matter. Now 14 medium breaths. 21 fast breaths. Now breathing in and holding in, keeping your lungs full, and I call this the breath of life, affirming yourself, affirming your body. Just keep your lungs full. In a moment you can let go, but for now, just focus, holding this energy, letting this energy expand your consciousness, but also relax, feed and nourish your physical body, balancing your emotions, connecting you also to your spirit, your higher self. Now you can exhale, inhale briefly, and on the exhale, empty your lungs and keep them empty. And this is the breath of release, letting go. Just empty yourself out. If there's an emotion or a sensation or a thought you want to let go of consciously, just get a sense of releasing. And even if this feels a little bit difficult, even if you feel short of breath, just hold that a little bit longer. You're just pushing out that emotion, that energy. And now you can breathe in. And now just keep your eyes closed a moment longer. Just feel where you are. Feel your body. Feel any of the sensations, if they're pleasant, if they're unpleasant. Don't judge them, just let them be. Be in the now with your body. Also feel your emotions, perhaps the emotions of the day, of the evening before. Just let it go now so you can be quiet in yourself. Let go of any other thoughts, doubts, or worries that you may have, just to make space, remembering that we are not our thoughts. We're something else, something beyond who we think we are. And now just open to your soul, your higher self. It is a you beyond your ego. And just feel a connection to a broader aspect of you. And let this aspect fill you with peace, fill you with a sense of joy. It's the joy of being you, the joy of your life. Sometimes that is difficult to see, but there are those moments of joy, and rather in this moment associate yourself with your joyful, light, love-filled being. Just think of one thing that you have to be grateful for in your life. There may be many. Just focus on one. Be that your family, your health, your interests and talents. Just take a long, deep breath now before we return. And just exhale, and on the exhale you can come back by opening your eyes and being here, present and calm. good.
Wow. Thank you. I don't know about you guys, but I feel great. And if you have just come in now, you might have been a bit surprised. And Ayrton from Melbourne has just written WTF, which because I think he might have come in right in the middle. So Ayrton, this is just a breathing exercise. Don't panic. That's okay. But thank you so much. This is great, and that's really something that like so easy to do, right? And if I'm sure that if we did that, something like that every day, especially in the morning, that would take away so many of our ailments. I recently, the only thing that I have to complain about my health this year is that my blood pressure went up a little bit, and that has to do with not moving as much. And I'm worried about it, of course, because blood pressure is very serious. I'm starting need to take medication, which I don't like, but I suppose I have to. Um, but just to be able to find other ways, to feel better about yourself and to relax, basically, isn't it? And let go and change, that mode in our heads, so
Exactly.
that especially people who live by themselves, and who are isolated now, and especially people who are worried because of their relatives and their work,
Exactly.
and so much. So thank you very much. That
Thank
is
you.
really lovely, Jacques. Really lovely
And
thing. I hope you
sorry,
have
just
enjoyed it as
just
much as I have.
sorry, just something I want to add about the breath. I think the wonderful thing about breathing is people often sort of say, I can't meditate, I can't clear my mind. When you just change your breathing, you don't need to think about clearing your mind. It just naturally, it's almost like your body takes over. So it's just a very natural way to put your body back into balance, which I think is very
Yes,
powerful.
and I think, like a lot of people think about Buddhism, for example, or meditation as something really mystical. But, like watching this Japanese guy on the Japanese program about the pilgrimage, he is so down to earth. There's nothing mystical. I mean, he opens his sutra book and reads them coldly. There's no kind of getting into a state or anything like this. It's just a practice, and I
Exactly.
think that's kind of pragmatism
Mhm.
of the Japanese has a lot to teach us. I think we are quite in our heads all the time, and to be
Exactly.
just doing the walk as well is about that, isn't it? Just bringing you back
Absolutely.
to your body and to your everyday kind of life without putting too many things in our heads. I think just yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. So,
Good.
if we want to do your walk, and as I told you, I have a real problem because you do these walks in July, which is when I'm still teaching. So I'm really hoping that one day you do that in August, so I can join you. But
Yes.
if people are available, like say next July, and they want to do the walk, how do we do this? How do we get in touch with you for a
You can
reservation?
you can be in contact with me at my Gmail account,
Okay.
and um, I talk about the logistics of that. It's again, it's very easy. Um,
Hmm.
the beauty of the Camino is, you just kind of rock up. That's another one of the amazing things about the Camino is that the Spanish government subsidizes a lot of the refuges. So
Ah.
there's lots of pilgrim refuges.
So does it mean it's not too expensive?
It's not very expensive at all, especially for Europe. I mean, in general, Spain is cheaper than the rest of Europe,
Yes.
but the pilgrimage is even cheaper because it's just really set up for that experience. The accommodation, the food. Every 2 to 3 kilometers, you've got a refuge or you've got a restaurant. So it's just really easy. You don't need to pre-plan. And I think,
Hmm.
I mean, obviously for my process, there is a certain amount of pre-planning, but we don't. It's not run like a tour where you've got to get onto buses and you've got to pre-book the hotels. It's
Hmm.
just a very beautiful, easy experience.
Wonderful. And Gareth Griffiths, who is watching, was said he wants to do it. So there you go. There's the
Yes,
information for you.
wonderful.
And
That's
Ken Kobayashi, who was one of our guests in another live streaming in Portuguese, he has done that Camino many times as well, and he has done the Camino Portuguese,
all right.
which goes
Okay.
from, I think, from Lisbon. I don't know
Fatima.
where it starts, but it
Yeah.
goes all the way north, which is something that I would like to do as well if I can't do it with you, because I love Portugal, and it would be great to be both in Portugal and the north of Spain. And maybe I can do that with Sonia, because
Yeah.
she's there now, so we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll see. But let's hope that we can start next year. Like let's hope that these
Exactly.
vaccines. I'm hoping. Hello, Laura. Welcome. Welcome. Um, I'm hoping that now that England has taken the lead and the US has followed, all the other nations will follow. So because I suppose they won't be able to afford. So I'm kind of estimating that here in Japan they will start, by the end of January. That's what I kind of have in my mind at the moment. And then hopefully by the time it reaches us, young, healthy people, because as you know, like a lot of people are ahead of us. Hopefully it will be before summer, and then we can resume our traveling. I think traveling will be very different, though, don't you think? I mean, perhaps more expensive, the flights.
Well, I'm expecting that. Yes, probably. I
Yeah.
can't. I mean, I don't see how it cannot, unless if it's being subsidized initially.
Yes.
Probably a little bit later on, it'll get more expensive.
Yes, which is not necessarily a bad thing, because as Nick Atwood, my English friend, we were talking about that this week on the phone, and he said it was crazy the way it was before. Then he said, I bought a flight from London to Budapest for £5. That's ridiculous. I mean, we don't need to be that crazy about our traveling, and also over tourism. My friends in Europe, especially my friend who lives in Venice, friends who live in Amsterdam, they have been complaining a lot because, Airbnb and all of that, it was a little bit too much. I mean, it was great because it gave access to so many people who could not travel before to travel. It became kind of democratized, the traveling, and that is a good thing. However, it was a little bit too much, wasn't it? So for the environment and everything. So maybe we need to rethink how we're going to travel as well, don't we?
Yeah, I think everything is going to be rethought, and
yeah, work is different as well. Like I find I can't, I don't put up with too much passive aggression, the office politics, all of that, because I'm so out of it now. And I just, I hope that I won't go back to it, because, like once you take that burden off your shoulders, you realize how much it was harming you. Getting to all those mental games and everything. And suddenly it's like, why are we doing this? And there was a great meme, I think it was from Thais this week, which was like, if I flirted with you this year, it was because we all thought we were going to die. Which I thought is so funny, because it's like, there was a moment of that, wasn't it? Of thinking, oh my God, is that it? How much longer do we have? Mortality kind of came closer, didn't it? Which is always a good thing as well, to make us reevaluate and appreciate things as well, isn't it? Let's appreciate what we have.
Put it into context.
Yeah, appreciate our friends, appreciate our loved ones, and everything, what we do.
And also, I think was probably quite, a big lesson for me is how quickly things can change. We kind of get into this comfort zone in our lives, and then suddenly things can change so dramatically.
Well, there's one aspect of Jacques Theron that I haven't touched on yet, and it's an incredible thing. I mean, that in itself would be, a raison d'être, which is your talent as a painter. So you have sent us some of the paintings that Lincoln is going to show us now. But tell us about it. I mean, you have this love of art, which is great, which is part of your spiritual work and part of your guide work. When people come with you to Europe, you can actually explain architecture and art and all of that. But you are a painter yourself. So how did that come about? And a sculptor as well.
Yes.
So how did that come about?
Well, I always just loved art, since I was very young. And my mother, she was sort of doing pottery when I was about 8. And at the time, I was reading a lot about Japan, so I'd try and copy some of the Japanese artwork that I loved, especially some of the Buddhas. And
so there you go. That's Aphrodite, Jacques Theron. So this is your take on Venus, yeah.
Yes, this is a recent project, obviously, that I've really been able to focus on since lockdown. I have painted since I was a teenager, and then in the last 3 years, I've been studying classical painting techniques here in Sao Paulo. So it really works with some of the painting techniques in oil painting, which as they actually make painting a whole lot easier. When you know certain techniques that the masters used, it just makes painting so much easier. And then now, in the last 9 months, I've been working on this project, which is painting a deck of cards on classical mythology. I do work a lot with mythology, the archetypes. The gods and the goddesses are not just something in literature or something we see, in a in a temple or in a history book. They actually are kind of poetic explanations of human behavior. So it's a way of understanding ourselves, in
And when you
understanding
say
that
a deck of
mythology.
cards, is it like a deck of tarot cards or just?
Yes, I mean, it isn't tarot, but it's the same principle. It's working with a card. Here's an example of how the cards are going to look.
Looks great.
So it's you kind of draw a card, and that card might have a lesson for you or something to think about in your day. Or my cards also have a little bit of information, about what that actual Greek god or goddess represents. But then it also has something about how that might be important in your day, or how that might have a point of reflection for you.
Wonderful. I teach a little bit of theater in one of my university courses, and I always start with Greek mythology. And I think it's so important that the Japanese become more aware of it, because it's all around us. Even here in Japan, like, you get Japanese pop art, and like every now and then you see a reference to mythology, but
Yes.
it's they are not as aware of it as we are in the West, of course, because for us it's part of everything, isn't it? It's part of our history, it's part of our artistic history and everything. But I'm every year when I do that, I learn something new. It's just incredible, because it's so multifaceted and it's so profound. And then recently I read a wonderful book by what's his name, the English guy who wrote about the
Stephen Fry.
Stephen Fry, thank you.
Yes.
And his book is fabulous. Have you read it?
I have. Yes, it's great.
Isn't that wonderful? Because it's so easy. He just retells all the myths, and I just recommended it to quite a few friends. And another friend of mine just said she just finished reading it, and it was fabulous as well. And it's just having that understanding that I think you need to retell the story again. Like someone like Stephen Fry, like rewrite it in a very good way, because what I think he did is bring it closer to us, to our generation, and to our understanding of it. And then you realize how close to us it is, how mundane it can be, and how we identify with the Greek gods and goddesses, fears and anxieties and loves and passions and all of that. They're also human, and it is incredible. It is. And one thing that I learned from reading that is that even the Bible has some stories that actually came from Greek mythology, which is very ignorant of me, but I didn't know that until then. For example, the myth of the Noah's Ark is in Greek mythology as well, isn't it? So obviously he was transferred there somehow over the centuries.
Well, it could be that, or it could be that there really was some experience that affected everyone at the time.
Exactly.
Some sort of flooding experience. And I think that's the other very beautiful thing about mythology is there are so many parallels, and it could be that the ancient peoples influence one another, but I also think it's because there was a very core experience of life. You were worried about thunder, you were worried about floods, you were worried about the direct effects of nature on you. So you started telling stories to understand the seasons, to understand the sun, from day to night, but also from summer to winter. And these are cycles that are just so ingrained in who we are as humans, in terms of a human experience which spans, 80,000 years or, a million or millions of years, So it's something that's just very deep in us. And there's so many parallels between, Native American mythology and Celtic mythology, for example. And of course, African mythology, Japanese mythology. I've read a little bit. I find it very hard to understand, but I mean, I love the story of Amaterasu when she goes into the cave, when she withdraws from the world.
That brings me to a little confession. That I think I told you and Mausi that when you came to Japan, I would go with you to Ise. But I might be going before you come, guys. I'm so sorry, but I'll go again. Okay, that's no promise. Because I'm kind of hoping to go now at the end of the year, because it's a place that I still haven't visited in Japan, and it is where Amaterasu gave birth to Japan, according to the legend. But you're right, they are so different, aren't they, from our archetypes? And but I'm sure that somewhere some of them would be similar, wouldn't they? Because there's something that is inherently human about them.
I think so. I think it's just a different psychology. I mean, what I find kind of beautiful and baffling about Japanese myths is there's a lot of shape shifting, like foxes taking on the forms of humans and that sort of thing. But
yes. Yeah, no, it's I'm fascinated about that as well, because there's this isolation of Japan being an island, and how like even when you look at Japanese culture and Chinese culture, even though there are lots of connections because kanji, of course, but there are so many things that are so absolutely different, in the way they behave, in the way they deal with life. So anyway, this is maybe subject for another live stream, because it's very profound, but it's fascinating. And so this connection with the art, and you producing art, can we actually buy it? Like, if you make this deck of cards, will that be available on your site? And
yes, the physical cards will be available. Also, what I'm going to do is make available, if people subscribe to our mailing list, people can receive a free card once a week, not in physical form, in email form, but that will be randomized to them. So it'll almost be like once a week there'll be a message that you can receive, from these, from these cards, or a little bit of information about the cards, but also maybe a point of, reflection or an affirmation. It's kind of a fun thing. It's kind of almost like a way to focus your energy or your attention, during that week. So if people want to subscribe to that, that's also a free offer, and that will be sort of coming out in early January. But the physical cards, the physical deck, will be available in about January, February as well.
Oh, very soon. That's great. Wonderful. I thought you're like far away from finishing them, but obviously you've done most of them.
I've done 25. So that is enough to have a start. So I'll have the 16 Olympian gods and goddesses, which are the famous ones like Zeus and Aphrodite and Ares and so forth. And then that's also got 9 of the primal gods, which are like the goddess of night, and Gaia, the goddess of the earth, and Ether, the goddess of light. They're the sort of very basic primal gods. The fascinating thing about the mythology of the Greeks, probably all mythology, but specifically with the Greeks, is you've almost got these generations. You've got the protogonoi, which are very much the elements, and then you've got the titans, which are more about the planets and the cosmic aspect, and then you've got the Olympians, who are more about personality and psychology and how we deal with the world.
And that has, of course, a very clear relationship with astrology as well, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm saying that for the sake of Sonia, because I know that she found a very good astrologer in Brazil, and we both have done our maps again and everything. I'm Leo with Aries rising, and Leo in moon in Leo as well.
A lot of fire.
Yeah, but Venus in Virgo.
Okay.
So a little bit of
ground you.
Yeah. But anyway, I just looked at the watch, and it's 7:58 already. I can't believe it, because this is such a pleasant conversation. Thank you so much for being with us today. And I really hope that we can. Lots of people will benefit from watching that and coming to your page and find more about your work. And that next year you can start taking these fabulous groups again to the Camino and other places. And please keep me informed about everything. And please start planning your trip, your promised trip to Japan that hasn't happened yet. I really would love to show you some things about, like this country that I've been here for 23 years now, believe it or not. And I still love it. It's a great country, and it's great to have this connection. I think you've discovered so much more about our Western existence by being in Japan, because, as you said, it's so different and makes you question everything. In a way, even just by looking at the Japanese, you think, why? Why are they like this? Why do they do things this way? And isn't this universal? I always thought that humanitarian values were universal, but it's a different kind of humanitarianism, if you like. It's a way that they found to deal with nature and life and gods and all of that. Exactly. So, yeah. And Sonia is saying, come visit me in Portugal. So there you go. The next time you are in the Camino, go and visit Sonia. She's in near Porto. And I want to say thank you for, to everybody. Rosalind Brown said, Joseph Campbell compares myths from different cultures. Yes, very true, Rosalind. Leslie is watching it. And also I got Laura. She said she came at the beginning of the breathing. Ayrton from Australia. So lots of people. Thank you so much for coming and watching our live. Even though it's so early in Brazil. And please tell your friends about it, especially this one with the exercise. I think it's a very good one to share. It will stay here. It will also stay as a podcast on Spotify. So please share. I'll send you the links and everything. And you too, Jacques, please share it with your friends. Put it in your page if you can, so people can benefit from this lovely conversation we had today. And thank you very much.
Thanks, Renato. Thank you, everyone. Lovely to be here, and hope to see you soon.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Same to you.
Let's hope that 21 will bring us lots of peace.
I'm sure it will. I'm sure it's going to be a great release and opening.
Wonderful. Me too. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks, Renato. Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.